Breaking news, Nigerians. Atiku received heartbreaking news after applying to file fresh evidence against Tinubu at Supreme Court. Senior lawyer Paul Erokoromu, a senior advocate of Nigeria, SAN, has emphasized that presenting supplementary evidence at the Supreme Court is a demanding endeavor that calls for extensive effort. He noted that the criteria for admitting new evidence at the Supreme Court are highly rigorous. Erokoro made this remark during an interview with the News Agency of Nigeria in Abuja on Sunday. He classified that, as a general rule, the Supreme Court tends to discourage the introduction of additional evidence. The general rule is that additional evidence at the Supreme Court or any court of appeal is not encouraged at all, but that doesn't mean that it is totally forbidden. However, the rules for admitting it are very stringent. The first is that such evidence is going to be extremely material to the resolution of the issues in the case. That is one of the hurdles to be crossed. The second hurdle is that such evidence could not have been procured during the trial at the trial court by reasonable diligence. So it is either the evidence was not available at the time of the trial, or it could not, by any kind of due diligence or any reasonable effort, be made available. For evidence to be admissible at the Supreme Court or in any court of appeal, it has to, at a very minimum, satisfy those two conditions, he said. When he was asked about the existence of constitutional provision permitting a party to submit extra evidence at the highest court, the senior lawyer remarked, "Most of these rules are case laws, and the Evidence Act does not specifically make these provisions." He stressed that it is only backed by the rules of the court. In the case of election petition, the Constitution requires that the proceeding be concluded within 180 days at the election tribunal, which in the case of the presidential election is the Court of Appeal. So the Court of Appeal, which may have the power to admit additional evidence, cannot have any jurisdiction if the jurisdiction of the trial court has expired. For instance, if a court of appeal has within 6 months to hear and conclude a presidential election matter, and the 6 months have expired, even if the Supreme Court wanted to admit additional evidence, it doesn't seem to me that it would be able to admit such evidence after the expiration of the 6 months, he added. According to him, if such evidence becomes available, it is very likely that it cannot be admitted on appeal. And if the period available for the trial court has expired, there is nothing the appeal court, in this case the Supreme Court, can do, he said. Erokoro explained that the Supreme Court, as well as any appellate court in the country, is mandated to address and resolve election case within a span of 60 days. On whether there is a period within which a Supreme Court can admit additional evidence, Erokoro said, except when it is dealing with matters that have come before it under its original jurisdiction. the Supreme Court doesn't generally admit evidence. When asked about grounds that are already decided case can be revived at the Supreme Court, he said though the grounds are not determined by law, there are rules of trials that are universal in Nigeria. One of them is whether due process was followed, admissible evidence rejected, or inadmissible evidence admitted. If the trial court failed to act fairly to both sides, if the lower court made a mistake as regards the law to be applied to. So there are so many possibilities that the ground of appeal can be built around, he said. Erokoro said, though it was reported in the media that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the People's Democratic Party presidential candidate, in the February 25th poll, planned to file new evidence at the Apex Court, it was still in the realm of speculation. So, my people, I believe case is a continuous process, no limit to evidence, even in the day of final decision and any jurisdiction. I believe Supreme Court can and will still admit more evidence in Atiku's appeal. All these people defending Tinubu, were they not the same people that condemned Mesoma, the poor girl, even before JAM investigation? How low can we go as a nation? So guys, what is your take on this? Please kindly subscribe and do not